Huzzah! It worked. Okay.
Huzzah! That should be the opening. Huzzah!
Huzzah! Hi again, everybody. Welcome back to Theory Time. I'm Carly.
I'm Jason.
And we are going full spoilers in on part 3 of Jason, this is mostly Jason's theory of where Stormlight Archive 5 will go. Today we'll do a small recap of parts 1 and 2 just so you can know where we're at. And
yeah, that's about it. I mean, I'm just going to do a recap of 1 and 2 to kind of bring my wife up to speed and kind of bring you guys up to speed of where my theories are at. Again, part 1 is not going to be very shocking to anyone. Part 2, there's a little bit of twist, but that's kind of the setup. And then part 3 is where really things start hitting the ground. I think you're going to disagree with some of the stuff, but I also think you guys are going to disagree. In fact, we were trying really hard not to talk about it because you were just finishing the book again. So let's recap. So
he means book 4, by the way. I was not reading book 5.
So we think the title is going to be Knowledge of Withheld Truth. Or at least we think that would be an appropriate title. I actually don't think Brandon's going to call it that, but I think it would be a very good title.
Too on the nose, but it sounds very Yasna.
It does. I think it sounds very Yasna-esque. But I don't know what he's going to go with. He did just say in his recent live stream that he'd break the rules if
so it was unintentional.
It meant for a good title, yeah.
For all of the titles to be a Ketek. But he would like to try and keep it that way. He's like, because, it'd be kind of fun. But if he has to break it to have a better title, he's more than happy to do that, which I'm fine with.
I think that's also a little bit of a misdirect. I think he wants people to stop thinking about to have it be a reveal. Because, I mean, the title's going to come out soon. So anyway.
I don't know.
So I call part 1 setup. Yep. I call part 2 conflicts. And then we'll get into part 3 here in a minute. So the setup is, we got Dalinar. He's fussing. I think he goes to Shinovar. We got Shallan, who finds out the truth about Bayado Mishram from Kellic. And we have Adolin, who's discovering a little bit more about himself and his bond with Maya. And he finds out that restoring the Oath Pact is not what needs to be done. We have Szeth. I'm saying that I think he's going to be in prison. I don't know how you're not in prison if you kill a leader of the world, although that's kind of what we tried not to discuss this week.
We've had a minor quibble over this recently about how the start of this book is actually going to be. Having reread Rhythm of War, I do not think Szeth is going to be in jail. I actually think Szeth is going to go with Kaladin to Shinovar. Jason thinks that's the plan, but that the plan is not going to happen, so Dalinar is going to be going to Shinovar.
Yeah, so I think that was the plan originally. I think that's what Dalinar had set up. But I think with Szeth now killing Taravangian, I think he has to change the plan. He's like, well, I got to send someone else qualified, so I guess I'm going. Yep. Let's see. I have Renarin and R'Lain kind of forming a relationship. We're learning more about their bonds. I think we need to do a little bit of setup as we go into the next 5 books, right? We want to leave them off in a place that is good for us to get really interested in, I wonder where Brandon's going to take this in the next 5 books, because we know that Renarin is going to be a main character. And then Venli, because we need the other side. That's one thing that I actually think the 4 books so far have struggled with, is not explaining the other side very well. So I think we're going to get that pretty heavy in here, but I think a part of that is because of the reveals that he's going to make.
So where Venli was last at is she is reunited with the old listeners who got away and has managed to help her mother bond another
enlightened
Reacher, regular Reacher.
Oh, just regular Reacher.
Which is your will shaper Spren. Which I thought was a really sweet moment, because Venli's mom could not say the words but the intent was there, so the words were still accepted. So she got her bond, and so her mom was healed, which I love. So she's now with the listeners, with hundreds of Reachers who are willing to bond the listeners again, which they're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
But that only makes it all the more painful for Gavilar. I wanted Gavilar to say the words so bad. Elhokar, you're right. No, not Gavilar.
Not Gavilar.
Gavilar's still a kid. Yeah, and still a jerkwad.
Gavinor's the kid.
Gavinor, yeah.
Gavinor. It doesn't help that all their names are similar.
So similar. All right, and then so part 2, the conflict. So we have our setup is that these are where the characters are going. Conflicts. I think Dalinar's conflict comes. Yeah, Davinar. Now I'm just gonna mix all the names. Shaladin.
Davinarly.
And Adazeth. So in the conflicts, I think we have Dalinar. His conflict comes from the fact that he has to break the current bond to reform the bond. And also, that means that he perhaps has to kill Nail.
So, Oath Pact.
Yes, the Oath Pact bond. We'll have the Contest of Champions here. I think that takes place in the first section of the book. You'll have the Dalinar versus Nail battle, which is something that I set up in the last one. I really think that's where we're going to go. I think Kaladin and Moash is a good guess, but I think that leaves us in an unsatisfying place. I mean, Brandon's a very brilliant writer, and he could twist that on us, but I think if you have Kaladin versus Moash, at the end of the battle, where does that leave us? Like, if one side, let's say Moash wins, okay, well, that means Kaladin's dead, and the story still has to wrap up. And if Kaladin wins, all right, so Odium's restrained, but again, where does that leave us? So I think it becomes more satisfying and fulfills more of Brandon's promises if Dalinar is a part of the battle. And so if Dalinar's a part of the battle, I don't think you put him up against Moash.
Well, when Kaladin is talking to Dalinar after Dalinar has made the agreement and they're back at the tower and all that's happened, Kaladin's like, okay, so you made a deal. He's like, yep. He's like, so when's it happening? He's like, in 10 days. And Kaladin immediately has a panic attack. He's like, I don't think I can. And Dalinar's, he's like, it's okay. I'm not asking you to. He's like, I cannot ask somebody to do this battle in my stead.
I really think it's going to be Dalinar. And so putting Dalinar in there, I don't think you put him up against Moash. I think it has to be somebody more able.
What about El, though?
Which one's El?
El is the one who comes in at the very end of the book and kills the Pursuer, also known as the Defeated One.
Oh.
And he's the one without rhythms. He's a Parshendi who has no rhythms.
So it would be interesting.
Used, I suppose.
It would be interesting, but then here's where I approach the conflict, right? I think Dalinar has to lose. Mm-hmm. And I don't think El can beat Dalinar. I'm like, it's one of those things where it's like, if you put X character against X character, do you really think they're gonna win? I think one of the keys is that you have to have Dalinar lose. But I also think the battle has to be a lose-lose. Mm-hmm. So I think it's if Dalinar actually wins, he still kind of loses. But if he loses just harder. So like in this case with Nail, if he wins, he's killing one of his pseudo gods, right? Mm-hmm. He's breaking the Oath Pact, which, since as a bondsmith, might cause him a little bit of turmoil. He might have to argue with the Stormfather about it. Mm-hmm. And so doing that, and then also if he has the knowledge from Adolin that, hey, you don't want to reform the Oath Pact, was like, well, now what do I do? So now he's got all these conflicts in the battle. But if he wins, or if he loses, obviously, he gets to serve Odium. So it's kind of a lose-lose on both sides, and that's how I think Brandon's going to frame the battle.
So maybe. I think El needs to have something more important to him. His title, He Who Quiets, was given to Moash.
Yeah.
He rips all carapace off the body when he inhabits it and replaces it with metal.
Yeah.
And, I mean, like, you don't just randomly insert this character at the end of book 4 and do nothing with him in book 5.
So, I think you're right about that. He's going to have a role to play. Mm-hmm. I just don't think it'll be in the contest. Because I don't think the contest... Because that's how I want to look at it, right? So, if El versus Dalinar, mm-hmm. I think the first question is, do you really think Elle could beat Dalinar? You think
we know nothing about him.
You think maybe. I think no. Yes, but we know a lot about Dalinar.
Yeah.
That's kind of like saying, do you think Elle could beat Zahel, or how'd they say it in the live stream?
Zail
or something like that.
However they say the Nahel bond. Apparently I say it wrong.
I also say nail bond, so maybe I should be saying Zale.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know.
So
it has an H in it. Okay, it's Zahel.
if you put Zahel up against Elle, do you really think Elle would win? Like, even though we don't know much about Elle.
There's a whole lot of mystery surrounding this Elle guy. Like, they've been waiting for him to return.
So yes, but I would say there's a lot of mystery around a lot of the characters, which is part of that we're going to get in. But the same sort of argument, right? I don't think, no matter how good Elle is, no matter what mysteries behind him, I don't think he beats Zahel. Because we know a lot about him. Same sort of deal with Dalinar. We don't know about Elle, but we know a lot about Dalinar. And we know that when Dalinar goes full on Blackthorn, there are few people that could really take him on.
I don't know what he's going to be using as a weapon, though. I know
I'm hoping for a wrestling match.
I brought this up last week, too. But I don't, because, I mean, he's not going to have a blade.
So that's how I frame the conflict, right? And so I think Nail makes a lot of sense. And I also think going into the next 5 books, one of the things we know is that's going to be very Herald-centric. And so I think we don't need to, but I think it would be appropriate to kill Nail and have a lot of Nail flashbacks. Because he's been doing stuff.
Well, the flashbacks are supposed to be Zeth, this book.
Right, but Zeth has a lot of interactions with Nail, so it kind of...
Yeah.
So we say they're Gavilar flashbacks, but there are a lot of characters that interact with Gavilar in those flashbacks. So I think it'll be the same sort of thing. We're going to flashback to Zeth, but we're going to get a lot of insight into Nail.
Maybe for one of them, because he didn't know
But same sort of thing. If we get a flashback for Ishar or a flashback for Kellic, we're going to see Nail. So I think Nail will be very heavy and present, but I think he's actually going to die, and I think it makes it appropriate for the story. Okay. All right. So we're still in part 2. So Contest of Champions, Dalinar versus Nail. I think it makes it appropriate. You have Zeth gets freed by Lift, but he kind of becomes. Could you see her in the background?
she decided to stretch in the doorway.
Nice.
Girl. Yes.
And so he kind of has the question of what becomes of me now, right? My mentor is fighting my old mentor. I was warned of this.
But I mean, Zeth has already told Dalinar, he's like, I need to move on to my next ideal. I need to go to Shinovar. And Dalinar's like, okay.
Yes, but I think this is going to be the spur. I think that's going to be one of the twists. But hold on, we're going to get there. I think Shallan finally approaches Mishram's sealing place, and she has a conflict with Mraize, and he kind of drops the knowledge. Because the whole I've killed my spren was already kind of dived into in the last book. So I think they're going to drop the knowledge that...
well, she's now working with Testament a bit. In a similar way that Adeline has been working with Maya. At the end of Rhythm of War, they're sitting there and they're trying to work with Testament a little bit to help her, get better.
And then I think Vinley is going to find that she's going to have a lot of headbutting with Ja'anat. I think this group of listeners... I think Ja'anat's going to kind of sort of take over behind the scenes. I don't think she's as nice as everybody says she is, because she's been trying to defect, and she's been like reaching out to R'lain, or Renarin and R'lain, and it's I don't.
It was only because of Ja'anat that Taravangian was able to do the odium thing, because she gave him 2 of her children, in topazes. And Zeth shows up at where Taravangian is being held prisoner. And Taravangian is like, don't break them. Don't do it. Like, please don't. And Zeth is like, broken. So then it releases the 2 enlightened spren, which immediately draws Odium in. Because he's like, you're working with Ja'anat, aren't you? And Taravangian's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Because I'm old and dumb today.
Yeah, so I think Ja'anat has her own goals that she's striving for. And so we'll get into kind of the conflict, but this is how I think it's going to build. Like I mentioned this in number 1, where I tried to outline this to flow how the books would flow. So some of these might hit as a kind of what? So now we're in part 3.
Okay.
Climaxes.
Woohoo!
And I think it opens up with Szeth. It opens up with Szeth being conflicted about what just happened at the Contest of Champions. Because we went from Contest of Champions, jumped away after Dalinar dies to Shallan, to Venli, and so we have all this stuff, and we're like, but what happens? So now we jump back to the contest, but from Szeth's point of view. And I think we have Szeth being conflicted, and this is where he reaches his 5th ideal. This is where I have this plugged in there. I think he reaches it after the death of Dalinar, and I think and I've mentioned this to you before, so this might not be a shock to you. I think Szeth's 5th ideal is, I will become what Dalinar was supposed to be.
So he's done his, we'll say, like, he's done his 4th. He's gone and dealt with the Shinovar stuff.
Yeah.
Because that is his 4th ideal. Their ideals don't necessarily build on each other. The Skybreaker ideals seem to just be the next thing.
It seems to be all the ideals are about becoming, right?
Yeah.
And so Nail, which is the most equivalent that we have, is I am the law. He became the law. He took that upon himself.
He was basically trying to be the interpreter of the law in all
instances. And Szeth wants to be better than he was. Mm-hmm. And he leaned on Dalinar, and he was even warned by Nail. He said, you don't want to make a person your ideal because of stuff like this. But I think Szeth's going to find a little bit of a way out in that I know that Dalinar's going to change because he's going to become a pseudo-fused. Because in my version, he gets killed by Odium.
Well, Dalinar, when Race was Odium, Race specifically said, he's like, you will become a fused. And Dalinar's like...
Right. So I think that's happening. I think that's a promise that he will fulfill. Mm-hmm. And I think by that, I think Szeth is going to be like, well, I can't just switch sides again.
Yeah.
And so I think that is what spurs his 5th ideal is, no, I will take up the cause. I will be what Dalinar was supposed to be. And whatever that is defined as will be defined as by his personal morals, right? It'll be, I will be the protector. I will be the leader. I will
unite them.
Unite them. Yes, that's good. So then I finally think this is where he realizes I will be my own, but my own with Dalinar as a guiding light. What I personify him as.
The ideal of Dalinar is my ideal.
I mean, I would equate it much to Christianity, right? Mm-hmm. I'm trying to be better,
trying to be like Jesus.
Trying to be like Jesus, or I'm trying to be like the Pope, or I'm trying to be like who's that famous nun? What's her name?
Mother Teresa.
Mother Teresa. So I'm trying to be better like this person. So not be that person, but mm-hmm. be like them. So I think that's where Szeth is gonna kind of land.
It'll be really interesting. I gotta go back a little bit because it'll be really interesting. I still hold to Szeth is going to go to Shinovar because he's already talked to Dalinar saying, Dalinar, this is where I need to go. This is what I need to do. This is my next ideal in my Skybreaker journey. And Dalinar's already said, okay. And Kaladin is supposed to be going to Shinovar to basically bring Ishar back to the tower so they can try to heal him in the next 10 days so that Dalinar can learn bondsmith stuff from him.
Which I think we said 2 in the other videos, and I'm
not really sure why we said 2.
I don't know why we said 2 either.
It's 10. It's still 10. We're still on 10. But also we know from Ishar that the Shin have given in and have begun to worship Unmade.
Yes.
So there's all sorts of nonsense going on because Ishar had his blade back, which upset the heck out of Szeth, because Szeth is like, how do you have that blade? My father was in control of that blade. Did you kill my father? Ishar's like, no, I am your father. I am your father. So there's an Unmade there. Szeth has to go there for his ideal. Kaladin is going because he started, the whole therapy thing, so he's going to try and help fix Ishar. And, I mean, the Shin have also still have, as far as we know, 8 honor blades.
So
Shinovar's a really interesting place right now.
Yes, but I think Shinovar is going to be more important in the next 5 books. So there are a lot of things that we'll touch on, maybe in this video, maybe on the next one, that are things that Brandon's leaving hanging, which I think is a lot of the setup for the next books. Because if you think about what are the problems that we have, that's kind of how I started this outline. The Heralds is one of them.
Yeah.
We are not solving that in this book. The only problem we are going to solve is the current odium problem.
Yeah, and so Kellick's goal right now, he's, one of the Heralds, his goal is to actually leave the Roshar system entirely. So world hop. But because he is so connected and invested in Roshar, he can't. Capital C, capital C connected. He is connected to Roshar. He can't leave, which is part of the reason why he's at Lasting Integrity. He's like, you guys are supposed to be helping me figure this out, and you've done nothing. We have Talon and Ash with Dalinar. Ishar has now fled to Shinovar.
Yeah, so I think all the heralds are in place for the next story.
Yeah.
But I think that story takes place in the next 5 books. Yeah. I think the only thing we're gonna get is some movement from Ishar, which we'll kind of get here. But that's why it's another reason I don't think Szeth goes to Shinovar, because I think Szeth plays a role in the next 5 books.
So the other thing though too is I'm thinking of like the Wheel of Time. To reseal spoilers for the Wheel of Time. To reseal the Dark One, Rand has to break all of the original seals to basically create a clean area for him to reweave the block, right? The thing that's actually sealing the Dark One away. Because if you try to just reforge something from the pieces, it's gonna be weak. So,
and I think that's kind of what we're getting at with I think that's going to be Ishar's explanation for why we can't just reform the bond. You have to break the bond and then reform it.
The only reason the Heralds are still alive is because of that Oath Pact bond.
I don't know. I think that's what they want us to believe, but I don't think that's necessarily true.
I mean, that's what's said in the books.
I know that's what's said in the books, but sometimes the author lies to us because it's based off of what the conversation of the current people have. Same sort of thing with Kaladin died. There had nothing that tied him to that. He was supposed to drift away into the beyond. Or Kaladin. Kelsier.
But he's just a stubborn jerkwad too.
Well, he was highly invested is the explanation, right?
Because
the Heralds are highly invested.
Preservation's power.
So I think the Heralds do have a way out if they want it, but I think people like Kalek are gonna be like, yes, I'm gonna die.
I don't think he wants to die. I think he just wants out.
Maybe.
But what I'm trying to get at is that there's no way to recreate the Oath Pact by using the current Heralds. You have to destroy the current Oath Pact, which has already started with Jezreel's death.
Yes.
Because that actual bond, like when Dalinar, uses his like vision thingy on Nail, he sees 8 other bonds going off from Nail into the other Heralds, and one line that's been completely broken.
Yes.
So I think it's gonna have to be, the Oath Pact is gonna have to be completely destroyed one way or another, either by totally killing all of the Heralds, or somehow just unconnecting them from said Oath Pact bond.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a bond smithy power thing that we see.
Which will still kill the Heralds.
I don't think it'll kill them.
I think it will.
I don't, because we have basically been told that the Heralds are gonna be a massive part of the next 5 books. And so I think this...
Did he say these Heralds or Heralds in general?
So he said Heralds, but I think it's gonna be...
Because it could be new Heralds.
But one of the points of view is gonna be Talon. So...
I mean, I'm also fine with Brandon changing his mind on things.
He might change his mind. But I think the Heralds do not die. I think Ashar is setting up some timey-wimey shenanigans because I think he's evil as all get out.
Yeah.
Okay. But we have, I think, Nail dies. That finally breaks the bond, allows Ashar to do whatever it is that he actually wanted to do, because I think he was flat out lying to Dalinar. I think he's trying some sort of shenanigans. I haven't quite pieced that together because I think that's more...
He thinks he's the Almighty.
Yes.
He's gone nutty enough that he actually thinks he is now the Almighty in human form.
Yeah, I think Ishar's goal is to be a shard. That is his goal. I think... we'll get into them.
Okay.
So I think the next section, after we talk about Nail's death, Szeth being self-realized and saying, okay, I will be what Dalinar used to be. I will lead them. I will unite them. I will be a good leader. I think then you jump to R'Laine, Venli, and Renarin because their stories are all kind of twisted together. And I think we have a division. I think throughout the book you're gonna have Ja-Anat whispering in Renarin's ear, "I'm a good person. No, I'm really not that bad. I'm just trying to help my people. This, that, and the other." And I think you have R'Laine with Venli on the other side being like, "No, she's been lying to us this whole time. The whole worship of the unmade." I think she's 80% behind that, with Ishar kind of pulling the strings because I do think he's kind of the mastermind. And so then Ja-Anat, I think her goal, which has basically been stated, is she wants to rule it all. She wants to be Odium. Not a shard per se, but she wants to be worshipped like a god, like Odium. Now, I think this comes into play as we move on, in that we talked about last time how Brandon likes to do dualities. So now you have Renarin on the Ja-Anat side and R'Laine on, we'll just say Venli's side right now, because I think Venli becomes a leader of her people.
Yeah, but
temporarily.
R'Laine has stayed at the tower for now.
I have here that he leaves.
Okay.
I think I stated that last time.
I mean, at the end of the book, he's like, I have things that I need to do, so he went back to the tower first.
Yeah, and so I think after the conflict, because he's been communicating through Spanreed, he's like, I need to now go help my people. It looks like everything's now tumbled here. I need to go. So I think he goes, or maybe he doesn't even go, but I still think that division happens. Renarin and R'Laine end up on opposite sides of the conflict. Renarin on Ja-Anat's side, who I think is evil, and R'Laine on Venli's side, who by happenstance becomes the pseudo-leader of her people, or the people who want to be free. And we'll get more into that in a minute. So,
well, they've also got some Fused on their side now, too. Fused who have defected, which is pretty
yeah, I'm just going to kind of lump them all together, because they're all very similar. So then we have Shallan. I think we go from that division, because now we have, this section's called Conflicts, right? Mm-hmm. We had Zeth's conflict of self, which he sort of resolves, but then I think he jumps to, I guess I missed that. He prepares for the conflict of Dalinar's coming. I mentioned that in the last one, where I think Odium now says, okay, you can break my bond to Navani, and says, but if you won't, I'm sending Dalinar to wipe you out.
No, I don't think he's going to do that. The reason I don't think he's going to do that is because he has made this promise already. He's made the contract.
Uh-huh.
And Hoyd has said, if he breaks this contract at all, that leaves him open to attack from anybody else.
Yes. But now he has his agent to go forth amongst the Cosmere.
Yeah, but if Odium himself is destroyed, then what's the point?
But Odium's not destroyed.
He would be. He would leave himself open to attack.
If he attacks...
If he breaks that contract... Which was, he will only hold his lands that he already has, including Alethkar and her dad.
If he loses.
No. If he wins, he withdraws, but no.
He withdraws to the lands he already holds. If he wins, he's allowed to continue forward on Roshar.
No.
Yes.
No, Dalinar said you get to keep what you have.
If he loses.
No, both. Both ways.
Yeah, go ahead. Look it up.
Yeah, okay. Look it up.
So I think that's the threat that he's going to prepare for. So that's the conflict for Szeth. Shallan. So then we jump to Shallan. So we go from Szeth to Renarin and R'Laine. Then we jump to Shallan. So now we're kind of working backwards from what we did.
Okay, so... Yeah, no, this is fine. If Dalinar wins, he withdraws to every... So, if Dalinar wins, Odium withdraws to every kingdom he currently holds.
Yep.
And will give up Alethkar and her Daz.
If he wins.
If Dalinar wins.
Yes.
Okay. Keep whatever lands you've taken, I must follow free, I can accept this. It's a matter of an oath, you will restore to me her Daz and Alethkar. Keep whatever lands you've taken, They mostly follow you freely anyway. I can accept this as long as you're still trapped on. Okay. Though I will focus my attention on sending agents out. However, if I win the contest, I keep everything I've conquered, Herdaz and Alethkar included. And I get you.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean he doesn't move forward. It just means he doesn't withdraw.
I don't think he will.
Oh, I 100% think he will. Because I think the craftiness of words is one of Brandon's fortes, and I think it is the Shard's way of navigating, right? Because they are bound by their words. So I think they have to be very careful of what they say.
I want you, Jerry risks his own soul. Final terms of these contests, 10th day of the month, willing to champion. Dalinar. So if I win this contest, you will remain bound to the system and return Alethkar and Herdaz to me, and you get to keep everything else. So you vowed to cease all hostilities and maintain the peace, not working against my allies or our kingdoms. I keep everything I've won, including your homeland. I will still remain bound to the system, and I will cease hostilities as you have said above.
If he loses.
Yes. No, if Odium wins. Odium says if I win, I get to keep everything I've won, including Alethkar. I still remain bound to the system, and I will still cease hostilities as you have said. But I will have your soul, and you will become infused.
So, what cities did he...
He gets to keep everybody who's basically already allied themselves with him, and he gets to keep Alethkar.
What happens to Iru-Thiru?
It's not his.
I'm still holding to my theory.
Well, he says... So, here's a twist then on what Jason thinks then, is that I don't think it's a bad idea, because, I mean, this is Odium for that matter. I don't think it's a bad theory, but Hoyt has said that if, you know, these terms that you guys come to agree on, if Odium breaks any of these terms, that leaves him open to attack from anybody else.
So here's two twists that still allow my theory to work.
Okay.
One, he said, I will stop hostilities, which might mean that I said for myself, not for Dalinar.
You mean Taravangian?
No, Odium. I know Odium is Taravangian. He's like, the promise was made with Odium, not with Dalinar.
What?
Dalinar's going to be his agent.
Yes, okay.
Yes. He said, I will not. That doesn't mean anything about his agents.
I think that's
I think it's implied, yes.
I think it's implied. Okay, but you're saying that there may be worded twists that he can use. Okay.
Yes.
Implied, but that may be a way he can work around it. Okay.
And second is I think that allows him to cease hostilities as a whole, but maybe not perhaps cease hostilities in general. Because otherwise that means he can never go to war ever.
No, so his goal, he even says, because he says, month ends tomorrow, come immortal, bound by your oaths, you will be the one I send him in the stars, serve my interests. Because later on, Odium, at some point, Odium even says, he's like, you know what? Fine. I'll keep everything I already have. I won't try to take anything else from you. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to stop creating the perfect army for this war of the Cosmeres.
Yeah.
So he will not pursue anything else on Roshar. But he is good, because he's like, I've been training all of you. You just don't know it. For this, what you guys essentially call the war at the Tranquility Halls, or whatever it is. Yeah. He's like, but what you don't understand is that is everything. That is the Cosmere.
Well, so I think, I still think my theory holds, in that I think with defeating Dalinar, he still wants to be free.
Yeah, so he says, I want so much more than Roshar, so much more than one planet, one people. But my people tire. He's talking about the Fused. I've worn them thin with this eternal battle. They seek endings, terrible endings. The entire war has changed based on what your wife has done. Only half measures. Yeah. So he's like, my aim is for a true ending.
Yeah. So, as I said, I think he still gets to twist those words into whatever he wants. However, and I do have this in here, but I have it in later, but it fits in here now. I think Taravangian unknowingly breaks breaks the agreement. So this actually might be the breaking of the agreement.
I don't think that's the issue, though, is Taravangian has, like, 95% of the knowledge of his predecessor.
But that's the thing, and we've seen it before with Harmony. He's like, I don't know, I'm still new to this, I'm still kind of processing.
Yeah, but he's got to process 2 powers.
Yes, but we also know
cultivation is helping Taravangian.
Yeah, sort of. But I mean, she just wants to see things progress.
Yeah, but she comes in as, like, almost like a kindly, I don't know, lover, maybe even. She's like, let me help you. And Taravangian's like, you have no idea what you've unleashed. Okay.
Yeah, but she does know what she's unleashed. So I don't think it's completely one-sided. I think it opens him up to being attacked because fully leashing him without consequence is not a Brandon style of writing. He will be unleashed, but he will be open to consequence. So I think Dalinar dies, he becomes his pawn, and perhaps unknowingly sends him to leverage Navani to set him free, because Odium wants to be free. The shard itself wants to be free. So leveraging Navani to be like, you can set me free as the bondsmith. I'm going to send Dalinar, and maybe as a split second that was a mistake, because now he's broken his contract. And we'll get into how I think that conflict ends. But Navani obviously is like, I'm not going to set you free.
He may try to use that as something. He may be like, if you don't, I'm going to send Dalinar to, like, raise Roshar. And she'd be like, I have the paper, you idiot. You signed this. Like, you can't do that.
Maybe.
And he's like, darn it.
But I still think he actually sends Dalinar. We'll get into that.
Yeah.
But I think that's how it plays out, right? Because I think at the end of this all, Odium is freed. He has Dalinar. Mm-hmm. And he is freed with consequence because I think that's just a Brandon style of writing. He likes the consequences of actions. So it's not going to be Navani that frees him. So anyway, let me move on.
It may not be immediate, though. Because, like, his goal right now is to raise up an army to fight for him in this war of the Cosmere.
No,
and so it may not be right away, because otherwise that allows too much time for others to come and try to destroy him.
No, I don't think it will be immediate. I don't even think we'll see the consequences of that until, say, book 4 or 5 of the next 5. Yeah. Because it'll take time, because it's not like all the shards have, like, a psychic link or whatever. It's going to take time for them to notice, I can now go after Odium.
Except Hoyt is very much a tattletale.
He is very much a tattletale. So let me get into it. Okay. You're spoiling my spoiling. So I think we go from R'Laine to Renarin and Venli and all that stuff that we've already mentioned. I think we then jump to Shallan. Okay. Who Shallan was, last we left her, was battling Mraize. And I think she ends up freeing Ba-Adam Mishram.
Wait. Are we down here in part 3?
No, we're not. Stop looking at my stuff.
Why are you back up in part 2?
Stop looking at my stuff. Where we last left her, she was battling with Mraize, and I think she frees Ba-Adam Mishram. Okay. I think a part of the truth that was revealed was that Ba-Adam Mishram, they mentioned that basically by sealing her away, that was a mistake.
Yeah. She had managed to connect all of the minds of the Parshendi, the listeners as they were before.
They said, though, it broke anything that was natural to Roshar. So anything that was native to Roshar.
Well, no, because it also messed up the tower.
Yeah, which was native to Roshar.
No, she's not. I don't think she's native, per se.
She's a spren that her investiture is concentrated on Roshar. I think that qualifies as native.
Okay. But yeah. Well, it was interesting, though, too, because not all of the Parshendi were connected to Mishram when she was caged. That's why we had the Parshendi like Venli's people. So I wonder why they weren't connected where all of the others were.
So I think that's because of Ba-Adam Mishram. There's a something I read where basically she can create her own void light.
Yeah, so she started providing the void light to the singers so that the singers would go to her.
So not quite indefinitely like Odium, but I think this was on purpose. I think her unmadeness, her splinter self, basically, like, she elevated herself to what Ja'Anat wants to be, right? And so I think here's where we have the second division. We have Ja'Anat, who wants to rule, who basically wants to be praised and honored like Odium and feared. And I think we have Ba'at Mishram, who there's a lot of mystery behind her. I think by the heralds teasing out that this was a mistake, we broke Roshar, I think her being free is a good thing.
Oh, no, I agree.
And so I think then she becomes the good half of the coin, right? She's the one, speaking for Ba'at Mishram, she's like, I just want all creatures of Roshar to be free. Mm-hmm. I think that's what she wants. Pure and utter freedom, much like Odium, but without said,
the anger.
Yeah, said passions. She's like, I just want you to be free. Free of Odium, free of everybody. So I think then when you have Ja'Anat on the other hand who's like, I want to rule, that's the exact opposite of what Ba'at Mishram wants. So I think you then are now establishing this new conflict that will go into the next books of Ba'at Mishram versus Ja'Anat. There are two sides. You have Renarin on Ja'Anat's side, and I think Venli and R'lain will end up on Ba'at Mishram's side because I think so Venli has been the kind of pseudo leader, but will kind of realize Ba'at Mishram can lead. I will just kind of be sort of in charge.
So I'm remembering this now because there's a lot of Eshonai Venli flashbacks in Rhythm of War. They were the flashbacks, right? I'm remembering now that the reason why there was a group of listeners that hadn't been affected by Mishram's imprisonment was because they chose to leave, thus abandoning also their forms of power and a lot of their other forms as well, a lot of their knowledge. So there was, we'll say 90% of the Parshendi peoples stayed with Mishram and, partook of her void light and did all of their stuff. And then 10% of them left, though, and went to the Shattered Plains and disconnected themselves from that. And I think there's also, like, a capital C in that, as well as, like, intent. Like, we will not worship or follow or do anything that has to do with Mishram. So that's why they were spared from the cause, from what happened from Mishram being imprisoned.
So, I mean, I think that's about as clear as day. Is that's the division we're setting up, right? I don't think Ja'Anat is as good as we think, and I think Ba'at Mishram is good, mostly.
Yeah, so now all of the Parsh people have had their minds restored because of the Everstorm, not because Mishram is back. So I wonder what will change if Mishram is freed.
I don't know.
Like, are we going to have another division against the Civil War?
I think so. I think
those who follow Odium's Void Light and those who follow Mishram's Void Light?
I think it's going to be very interesting. However, I also have a theory in here somewhere. I don't know where it is. But I think what Ba'at Mishram supplies is not straight up Void Light. I think it's a different kind of light. Partly because we're starting to get into the mixtures of light, right?
Yeah, which is why I think I have a theory of how the bondsmiths are supposed to work, too.
I think Ba'at Mishram provides, we'll just say, her own type of light. I think some sort of mixture of void light and something else, perhaps cultivation.
So, just for kicks and giggles, so we have two bondsmiths now. We know that the Night Watcher is considered is the third. Like, it's even said, Stormfather says there's me, there's the sibling, and then there's the Night Watcher, who have been the Spren of the Bondsmiths. That's why there's only ever three. So Stormfather and Dalinar being of honor and odium, the Tower and Navani, so the sibling and Navani being of honor and cultivation. Therefore, the Night Watcher and whoever they bond with would be of cultivation and odium. So yeah, life light and void light mixed together.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think.
Does it become night light then?
Night light. Night light incoming. That's what Ba'at Mishram supplies as a night light.
Mishram is a night light.
Yeah. But I think this is a big conflict that's just kind of going to be dropped on the land. This is where we're leaving the land at the end of the books, and I am getting a little more vague as we go on because as things go on, it gets harder and harder to get specific without actually writing the book.
Easier to predict the near future than the far future.
Yeah. However, I do think we have the separation of Renarin and Relaine for a lot of reasons. I think it makes a lot of sense. Dalinar likes the dualities, but also having one on one side and one on the other, I think you have to have.
It gives us good insight as readers.
No, not for that. I think you have to have it because of their power sets, their future sight power set. Oh, yeah. They have the future sight, but it also blocks the future sight of other people. Yeah. If you have one on one side, it gets a little OP, right?
They're both bonded to enlightened Mist Spren, which makes both of them Truth Watchers.
And so I think
that was another thing though. The enlightened Spren, this is something that you kind of miss if you don't read it. They are of honor and odium, which I think is why the Truth Watcher things do a little bit of void binding as well with the actual future sight as opposed to what a typical Truth Watcher has. So I think they may actually have like one, so they have two surges, but one of them is, flipped to the void binding side.
I think that would make a lot of sense.
Yeah. Which is why, they can't do light weaving the way that the light weavers can. They have something else.
It's one of the reasons as I was designing my theory that basically everyone who's different, I think, moves on to the next book. Mm-hmm. Because that's what Brandon does in Era 2 of any of the stuff he does.
Yeah.
is he takes what he has and the old stuff kind of passes away and the new way of using stuff is what they have. Think Mistborn Era 2. You have the Twinborn. That's basically what you have here is you have now somebody who can use both sides of the thing. But because it'll be such a shorter period of time, I think two things. One, Navani and Yasna are going to push that where 5, 10, 15 years is going to feel like 100 years. They're going to make tons of progress.
Well, they've already made, accidental progress on how to take the lateral movement of something from being equal to compounded.
Yeah.
Which is a pretty huge deal. I mean, they basically just figured out how to make planes.
Yeah. And then second being that the older way of doing things, while is interesting to us as fans, becomes a little too simple when, say, you're throwing those two people into battle. It's like, I have a single surge, but I'm up against somebody who has two surges and is a master of compounding and blah, blah, blah. It just, I think it becomes too simple. So I think everybody who has...
Yeah, we have to remember that while this is really neat to us, this is traditional for them.
Yeah.
So it's been around for a long time.
So I have, let's see, where are we at? Bioda Mishram.
Do you have a Kaladin part coming up?
Well, you're just going to have to wait and find out.
Because that's our art piece for today.
Well, you're just going to have to wait and find out.
I'm trying to do the art piece if there is a Kaladin part.
So I don't know what the conflict is going to be with Jana. Maybe she's taking over. Maybe she's taking over the Fused. And I think Bioda Mishram kind of has to rush away, right? Mm-hmm. I think there's two things that a lot of the fans are forgetting. What's important about Bioda Mishram. Everybody's seeking Bioda Mishram. But why? I don't think it's her herself. I think she's important to Roshar.
No, it's her ability to connect the minds of millions.
I actually think that's wrong. So wait, just let me finish. So I don't think it's Bioda Mishram herself that they want. I think they want whatever she's trapped in. Because they're looking for ways to transport themselves or light or beings. And then the second thing that I think everybody's forgetting...
Why not just go Raid Lasting Integrity then? Because it has the largest compound of perfect gems. It's got hundreds of them.
I think that's probably harder than it sounds.
Maybe.
And then we also don't know exactly how investiture works in Shadesmar.
What do you mean?
What do you mean? Have we seen anybody do any sort of magic in Shadesmar? I mean full-on magic, not just simple...
Yeah, if they can use Stormlight the exact same way for surge binding.
Yes, but now you have all magics, if that's the way that works. I don't think it's as simple as we've been led to believe.
The gemstones aren't going to change if they take them out of Shadesmar into the physical realm. That's what I'm saying, because the few or the unmade, so the thrill was contained in the King's Drop, right? Yep. So then I'm assuming Mishram is also contained in a perfect gem.
Probably a perfect gem of a sort,
with
yeah.
probably an aluminum cage, to be honest, just to be extra sure she stays in.
That's actually what I'm thinking. I'm thinking it's a perfect gem within an aluminum, either box, cage, something.
Yeah, some kind of cage, because Spren naturally retreat from it. They don't want to go near it. It's almost like iron with fairies.
Mm-hmm.
It's harmful to them. So that's what I'm saying, though, is if they're looking for the gem, well, there's a whole cache of that in Lasting Integrity.
So, again, I think rating Lasting Integrity, 1, is not as easy as it sounds.
And that's possible, yeah.
And I also think there might be something special. I don't think it's just a perfect gem that makes it special.
Mm-hmm.
It might be even a fabrial of a sort.
I'm assuming, though, too, I'm pretty sure it's actually, like, Mishram is trapped in a perfect amethyst, is what it is. I might be wrong on that, but I do know that each gem actually relates. And it's not even because of what type of gem it is, it's because of the color of the gem. Warbreaker's going to be brought into this.
But that might be the case, right? So maybe Biodo Mishram is trapped in a colorless gem. So it allows them to
that would just be a diamond.
Bind anything. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
we also had those things that Brandon said last night.
Whatever it is, hold on, I'm not done.
Yep.
Whatever it is, I think that's what they want. They don't want Biodo Mishram because I think she's important to the story itself. The story has to progress. It's not...
Well, she's also intelligent. That's why she's got 3 names.
Yeah. Well, more intelligent than the rest or whatever. Their naming convention is interesting.
Yeah, so
but it's...
with it being like Nargul is a one name, no dashes in between.
And then Ja Anat.
So she's a little bit more smart. And then you got Ba'ado Mishram.
Yeah, but we don't know how those are handed out. They just kind of say that's because they have this that they have. Like, we don't know if there's like a qualification test that they have to take or something.
Yeah,
it's
I don't
not.
know.
So,
I just know from the Coppermind, they're like, that means that she's like actually intelligent.
Well, because I think that's a part of where Jeannot's stigma comes from.
Mm-hmm.
I think she's like, I'm smarter than Ba'ado Mishram, like, but I only have 2 names.
Yeah.
So I think the naming is really just because.
Maybe.
I don't think it's actually because they're smarter.
Maybe.
Because then you'd have to come up with a way to quantify it, and I don't think that's a thing.
Teravangian's test.
Okay, but we know everybody's after Ba'ado Mishram,
yes.
and I don't think it's her herself.
Because you think it's maybe the gem.
I think it's the gem, and I think it's because, I think it's Ba'ado Mishram existed before, so they had opportunities, and it was never kind of the searching. There's the mystery behind the aluminum box from the
Stormlight 5.
From the prologue. And then the transporting of the light, I think it fits too perfectly to not want Ja Anat, because I think, or not, Ba'ado Mishram, because I think she's important to the story of Roshar, because Mraize and them are important to the story beyond Roshar.
Yeah.
So they don't want what's important to Roshar, they want something else to help them.
Yeah. Which,
yes, their plight is similar to the Heralds, but I think, again, that ties into they want... Because when they stabbed Jezrien with the Racium knife, their expectation was that he would be in the soul, in the gem. Yeah, but that's not what happened.
His soul got pulled out along the Racium metal that was on the blade and into the gem.
But his soul kind of drifted away. So
yeah, after a couple weeks, it was just gone.
So it didn't work how they wanted, which I then think was like, okay, then we need whatever is keeping Ja Anat. We need that. So I think it fits too perfect. Yeah, I think it fits too perfectly for it to be anything else.
Especially because Kellick's whole thing in the Stormlight 5 prologue was he's like, this could work because it was the aluminum box. Which now I'm wondering, what happened to that aluminum box then? It's not going to be what's holding Mishram because that came after she was contained.
So.
And I think that's what his hope was, though, was that aluminum box containing a sphere which would hold his soul would be what would allow him to leave Roshar, because aluminum also kind of breaks connection.
Yeah, so I think that's where Navani comes in, and we're actually rolling right into that. So I think Navani... Oh, actually, I missed a little bit.
Okay.
So we get into Navani a little bit, but I'll just mention it anyway. I think Navani does more of what Navani does. She does research. What am I going to do? We're being threatened with Dalinar. I can't free him, but I'm learning more about being a bondsmith.
Well, and all the things that she can learn about Fabrials itself.
And I think more knowledge comes out about what Gavilar was actually up to. And so I think she might actually discover the aluminum box. Maybe. Because here's where I'm really kind of reaching for the fences. Mm-hmm. Back where Shallan is battling Mraize. Mm-hmm. They free Bo out of Mishram. I don't know how, because I don't actually know what she's encased in. Mm-hmm. They battle, and I think she gets kind of distraught, blah blah blah. The other thing we're forgetting that I think is going to play a huge role is the knife. But here's how I think the knife plays in. Mraize and Shallan battle. He drops some knowledge. She gets distraught. I had before where Adolin shows...
She still has Radiant, by the way.
Yep. Not important to my story.
Yep. But you were just confused last time, so I was reminding you that she has
Radiant. I think Adolin shows up to the conquest, kind of fills in Dalinar, probably right as he's stepping into the thing. Don't break the bond!
Don't do it, Dad!
And then when he dies, he's like, I gotta go get Shallan, because I think maybe they sent Moash after this. So I think you have Kaladin goes after Shallan, but takes Adolin with him. Mm-hmm. Kaladin battles Moash. Adolin tries to help Shallan. Because I think so. Then setup.
Okay.
We're gonna skip back and forth because I think this all kind of happens at once, as Brandon does. He ends a chapter like on a cliffhanger and then goes on to the next part. Kaladin battles Moash. We're gonna set that aside.
Okay.
Adolin runs ahead and helps Shallan.
Okay.
Shallan is in a state of distress, and I'm gonna move it one step further. I think Mraize has mortally wounded Shallan. I think she's about to die. Like, yay close. Mm-hmm. And I think here's where Adolin gets a little bit of a humbling, which Brandon has mentioned. And also kind of learns something about himself. I think he becomes whatever it is he's becoming, because it's not a Radiant. It's not
He seems to be filling the cracks in the spirit web of Maya as opposed to the other way around.
Yeah.
Which is... That makes him so wholesome.
He's the best.
He's a golden retriever.
But Brandon has mentioned Adolin thinks he's the best. He's not the best. He's very good, but he's not the best. No, he actually has a lot of self-doubt, and that comes from being in the shadow of Dalinar. Yes, but when it comes to his skills as a swordsman,
as a duelist,
he thinks, all right, I've got this.
He's pretty dang good, though. I mean, he did also learn from Zahel.
But he did. But I think that's what he's missing, right? Son, you know a lot of stuff, but you don't know everything. And so I think we get the full-on Adolin duel that I've been waiting for. So, come on, Brandon.
Yeah, I've been waiting for that, too, because, every time he goes into a fight, he's either outnumbered, so it's, stupid, or he's slash, I win. And everybody's like, aw.
Because, I was trying to think, of a ways, how do we get an Adolin duel in here? And my initial...
He did have a bit of it, though, when he was saving Notem.
Yeah, well, I want a better one.
Okay.
And so I was thinking, maybe you put Adolin up against Dalinar. No, that can't happen because they have to be willing participants.
Yep.
So I think this is perfect because we have no idea how dangerous Mraize is. And I think Mraize, we've talked about this a little bit, is a little off kilter. I think if Thydakar knew what Mraize was up to, would he approve? No.
Yeah.
But
they even asked,
oh yeah, it was in the live stream, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody does what does Kelsier think of the fact that Iodel and Mraize have been kidnapping a child? And he's like, it's possible, that what Kelsier doesn't know won't hurt him, or something like that. And it was like, oh.
I think Mraize is very unscrupulous. I've thought that for a while, and I don't think his boss knows. Mm-hmm. But I think Kaladin, or Kelsier, Thydakar, dang it! Thydakar being him.
Lord of Scars, being who he is. If he found out, would he smack him around a little bit? Sure. Would he be unhappy? Sure. Would he say, don't do it again? Yes. Would he kill Mraize? I don't think so. No. Because he's like, as long as it gets me what I need. Yeah, and then you'd have to find a new agent. And then you'd have to find a new replacement. Set everything back up again, and it's too much of a hassle. And I think Mraize knows that. I think he knows I can get away with a lot being kind of a serial killer. Yeah. But anyway, so I think we have the Mraize versus Adolin duel while Shallan bleeds out. I think she died, we're just going to go with
for now, it appears like she's dying. Adolin and Mraize battle it out, and I think Adolin loses. But I think he's good enough. Adolin's like, they're gonna kill the puppy. They're gonna kill Adolin.
You can't kill Adolin. He's my favorite.
I think where it comes in though is he loses where he's like, I thought I was this good. I'm not that good. There's other magics and stuff I don't know. I don't know how to defend against. I don't know. So this is where he realizes, I now realize I know what I don't know, which I think is the first path on learning, right? So this is where he truly gets humbled, where Mraize comes in and is like, kid, you don't know.
Think like Thanos versus Hulk.
Right. Hulk was stronger.
Hulk is
Adolin is probably
stronger.
more skilled, but Thanos was way more skilled.
Hulk is stronger.
You know what I'm trying to say.
But Thanos has skill. So I think Adolin is, pretty good. We'll say he's, he's not adept, he's an expert. But Mraize is a master.
But Mraize also has skills that I think we're going to see that Adolin's not prepared for. I think we're going to get 2 moments in this book that kind of tie in the larger Cosmere, and they both have to do with the AVRs. I think Thydakar's going to use his AVR to...
whatever. I wonder what his AVR's powers are. We don't know that yet.
And Adolin's going to be like, what was that?
Yeah.
Almost like Kaladin versus Zahel, right? He's like, did that just come alive?
Yeah, because when they're fighting through the cloth,
like
the cloth that was up for drying. He's like, it looked like a person was walking through it. So then he stabs it, but there's nobody behind. He's like, how did that? And then he's like, oh my gosh, the scarf was red and now it's like not. Yeah,
so I think Adolin, who's a person who's like, I'm accustomed to facing a person with a sword. What do I do about a bird?
Yeah.
Or whatever magic he happens to have because of the AVR. So I think that happens. So I think Adolin loses, but I think there's going to be a moment where Adolin becomes Radiant-esque. I don't know what it's going to be. It's not going to be Radiant. I don't even know if he'll have ideals. But we've mentioned where Adolin fits into...
He would be an edge dancer.
An edge dancer.
Because he has a cultivation spren sword, and I think he actually fits in with the edge dancers as well. Because while Maya is not his spren in the way that a edge dancer and their spren connect, I think he still fits into that of the, I will listen, I will help kind of ideal.
So, but it also allows him to heal. So I think I think it'll heal though himself. Because it's easier to heal oneself, easier than to heal someone else.
No, actually. It's easier to
heal
somebody
around?
else.
Dang it. Well, it ruins my theory a little bit. But I also think he's going to be not a full-on edge. He's going to be something other than a regular edge dancer.
Lift got injured while the tower was down. And she could perform healing on others, but not herself.
Maybe his will be the other way around, because I do think he's going to be different.
I mean, with Adolin, who knows at this point?
Yeah, I think he's going to be very different than what we know.
Yes.
Okay, here comes the second big thing that I mentioned that I don't think people are considering is the knife. Okay,
so there are multiple Racium knives, by the way.
I know.
Okay, but not a whole lot. Like, I don't know, we could probably even say there's only like 10.
Yeah,
which would
one
make
for
sense.
each of the things.
Yeah, but I mean, they can be used multiple times.
But the knife was given from Mraize to Shallan.
Yeah, so Mraize gave it to Shallan. There was also one that Raboniel and Navani were using that got lost, but then there was a second one that she managed to get. The first one was destroyed. That's what it was. But then the second one that she got after the first. So we know that there's been at least 3.
Okay.
Yep.
But she has the knife.
Okay, yep.
Mraize does not want the knife. He gave it to her. Like, if he wanted the knife, he never would have given it to her.
Do you think she still has it?
Yes. I
or
think
do
she
you
does.
think Kellic has it?
No, I think she has it. And I think she takes it with her. And I think it becomes very important. And this is where I think it becomes important. So...
This is your excited
it
face.
is my excited face. Yes! So... Mraize is there for the container that contained Boad Mishram. I think Boad Mishram gets out, takes off. Adolin and Mraize kind of face off. Adolin loses. Mraize takes the container and goes. Adolin now is left beaten and battered. with a dying Shallan. I think what he does is he uses the knife on Shallan. And then he goes back to Navani to put her in the box. So I mentioned I mentioned before that I think he's going to travel. Oh, this is where I think the idea. I don't think the idea comes from Adolin himself. Mm-hmm. He's not that. He's very battle centric. You want to talk about swords all day long? Okay, he'll talk about swords all day long. You want to talk about battle strategy? Cool. You want to talk about Cosmere and power? He's like, I don't know. He was like, that's cool, I guess.
Yeah.
So I don't think the idea comes from him, but I think what happens is I think they travel for a little bit with Azure. I mentioned that Azure goes with... Oh, I'm messing it up a little bit. But that's okay. I think Azure goes with Shallan. Mm-hmm. Azure may or may not battle with Mraize. I don't know. But I think ultimately what happens is if Azure uses it or if Adolin uses it, Shallan ends up in the knife or in the gem. Mm-hmm. And I think what it comes down to is basically Azure turns to Adolin and says, I have a place where I might be able to help you. I know, I told you weren't going to like this. This is my theory. This is mine.
No, because the only reason it works on the heralds to suck their soul in is because their souls are spren-like. Shallan is not.
I don't think that's actually true.
I think that's true.
So I think there's a greater relation between a spren soul and a regular soul than we might think.
Because we did get the whole anti-Stormlight thing, and through anti-Stormlight we could actually kill a spren, not deadeye it, but actually
kill it,
totally kill it, completely erase it. That's how Fenderana dies. That's how Teft loses. Curse you, Brandon! I'm still salty about that, and I forever will be. And then we have anti-Void Light, which Raboniel used to kill her daughter. Completely kill her so that she couldn't be reborn, right? Mm-hmm. But they've even said that when the spirit or the heavenly ones use their spears on those who have Stormlight, they're just draining the Stormlight out of them, not their souls. If they stab them with Eracium, anything, because their spears are coated in Eracium and have like a gemstone on the end which can suck their Stormlight out.
So here's why I think Shallan dies, but I don't actually think dies. I think what I'm referring it to is taken off the table. Mm-hmm. She's a character you can't play with.
She becomes an NPC.
Yes, but is still important to the story. Mm-hmm. For several reasons. One, I think Adolin needs to go with Azure for another reason that I'm about to get into. And
to Nalthis?
I think so. And
to see if endowment will make her returned.
Yeah. So I think she becomes I'm so glad that you're following my train of thought. So I actually think that's what's going to happen. I think she gets damaged in a way, whether it's trapped in the knife or not, but Adolin has to take her soul, whatever, with Azure into the Cosmere. And
so that maybe they keep her alive long enough so that then when they get to Nalthis, she dies. Because I only think those who die on Nalthis can be endowed and become a returned. Maybe,
but so here's the hiccup, right? Is Adolin knows Zahel. Mm-hmm. Azure knows Zahel. So it's going to be kind of a mutual agreement.
Which, for those who are still confused about this, Zahel is Vasher.
So it's like, you help me find him, because he's now run away into the Cosmere. Mm-hmm. Or help me defeat him. Help me bring him to justice. And I will help you save Shallan.
Why do you think Vivenna wants justice on Vasher? Because of Nightblood?
No, I actually think there's more to it than that, which he's supposed to get into the Nightblood story. Mm-hmm. So I didn't hypothesize on it because I didn't feel like there was a point. Because he could literally just throw anything in there. Because at the end of Warbreaker, they're on good terms. So yeah. It could literally be anything. I don't know.
Yeah,
he stole her toast. That's what it is.
Or maybe he took some breaths from her, like maybe she put some breaths into something and he took it. He's like, haha.
The second reason is because at this point in my theory, I've skipped a bunch of stuff. Whatever, we'll get into it.
Yeah, okay.
Is Dalinar has been thwarted at Irithiru. So, but now Odium is free, so he's like, I'm gonna send, or free or not free, doesn't really matter. I'm gonna send Dalinar into the Cosmere. Go, my agent. And so Adolin is like, I'm gonna go get my dad, which I think would be such a wonderful relationship, because he's constantly lived in his shadow. So now he needs to go retrieve him. Yeah,
and he's still a bit, ticked off at his dad though, because of the reveal of Dalinar killed his mom.
Well, and so that's one thing. Like, if we're gonna resolve all the stories, and I kind of broke down each of the character, what things need to get resolved and where. By the end of this, most characters are kind of sort of resolved, except for if Dalinar's in the Cosmere, which is a promise I think he has to do.
Yeah, you can't tell me that Dalinar might be an evil world hopper and not give me Dalinar as an evil world hopper.
Yeah. Then how do you resolve the tension between Adolin and Dalinar? Brandon's brilliant, and he might come up with a Sandor Lance that kind of, my son, I'm about to be evil, but I forgive you for everything. Okay, goodbye. And then like
X's on the eyes.
Yeah. And so he might come up with something, but I don't. I think that persists into the Cosmere, which I think will make it all the more interesting, because now you get these blended characters. You get Adolin, who's not quite a Radiant, but is something different. You have Azure, who knows about Nalthis, etc., etc. And then if you get like Shallan as kind of a dual-wielding Radiant returned, like, how cool of a team would that be? So now I'm imagining that this is now your Cosmic Avengers.
But if she dies, doesn't she have to rebond with her friend?
Perhaps, but
because I'm pretty sure at this point would it cuts.
But you might be right. She might not die. I don't know.
I don't know either.
But I think that's what happens. Is he goes into the Cosmere chasing his father and a way to restore Shallan.
Okay.
As our Cosmic Avengers. This is what I'm calling it.
There once was a dream.
There once was a dream. But so also, for a reason, I think we also need to clear the board of most of the major characters.
Yeah.
Kaladin, Dalinar, Adolin, Shallan. Those characters need to go away so that the new characters, Yasna, R'lain, Renarin, can take over, because it's only going to be 15 years. So unless they die, they got to go somewhere.
Yeah. Jason's referring to that there's probably going to be about a 15-year jump between Book 5 and Book 6 of Stormlight Archive.
So for me, Dalinar into the Cosmere. Shallan off the table, as I'm referring it to. Adolin also into the Cosmere, chasing them. Kaladin. Now we'll address the Kaladin stuff.
Before we get into that, we're going to share our favorite Kaladin fan art.
Okay, but first we're going to share Kaladin fan art.
Last two episodes, we decided to show off our favorite fan art pieces of, there was Dalinar and Shallan. So we shared those in the last two. Go ahead and check those out. We also put those links in the description. We'll put the links in the description this time. Today's is going to be Kaladin. Actually, I'm going to leave that over there because that doesn't really matter. Alright, Jason's is up first. This is his favorite, and it's by Zerael_art on DeviantArt.
Yes. So, I really like this one for a lot of reasons. This is how I imagine Kaladin. He has the wispy, untied back hair or whatever. He's got a little bit of a beard.
Roguish charm.
Yeah, he's got the roguish charm. And he still looks kind of young, but he's a handsome young. Some of the ones that I have seen, I don't like he's too young. He's like...
Yeah, he's almost...
16, 18 or whatever, and I'm like...
I mean, he's only supposed to be like 22.
I get that, but I don't want him with a boyish face.
Yeah.
And as much as I really, really like Dune, and I get he's supposed to be a boy, if that was my main hero, like, as a Kaladin role...
You mean Timothy
Chalamet?
Yeah.
Yeah. If that was my main role, I'd be like, you're not leading this group into battle.
There's some people who look like kids even when they're like 22.
Yeah. he doesn't have the physique or the face, because Timothée
He's also
Chalamet,
not too pretty in this picture.
Great actor and everything, but he still looks like a boy, which works for the story because he's constantly referred to as boy.
Yeah.
But I don't think of Kaladin as a boy. I think of him as a full-grown adult who's just trying to figure stuff out.
Yeah.
So that's the thing that, number one, I like. I like that he has his spear. They're out on the plains. The second thing is I like the depiction of Syl. It's very... how do I put it?
Ethereal?
No.
Divine? She's a little piece of divinity.
No. I don't know. It's how I imagine it in my mind. I don't imagine her as,
a solid figure.
I don't imagine her as a solid figure. I don't.
Ephemeral. That's
ephemeral.
The word.
That's a good word.
Yeah, she's kind of wispy because she, the honor spren they like to relate themselves to the wind spren, and she loves that. She loves her little cousins, as she calls them. So it would make sense for her to have kind of a more windy look to her.
But it's not my necessarily favorite depiction of Syl, but it's a good one. So that combined with this is one of my favorite depictions of Kaladin. I'm like, yeah, if this is how they're depicted, I'm down for that. That is really good. So good job, Zerael art. Yeah. I thought this was really good.
Yeah, I like. I think, his skin color is what I think it should be. He's not too pretty in the face, but he's a little bit chiseled, which I feel like he should be. I mean, he's not going to have like a single ounce of fat on him.
Right.
He's going to be like, he's going to be pretty, but not perfect. Yeah. I like it. I also like the style of the art. I like it. It's kind of painted. Even though I'm sure this is digital art, it has, it feels like a painting. All right. So mine is by Stephen Lee. And y'all are gonna be like, of course, Carly, this is your favorite, but shush. I love this piece. This is when he says, honor is dead, but I'll see what I can do.
This moment in the books, I remember reading it.
And
I'm like, yes!
Do it!
Yeah! Like, I was so excited. I was reading it at work, and my coworkers were like, what is wrong with you? I was like, it's like, you don't even know!
So, for multiple reasons, I love this. It's a beautiful action piece in and of itself with a really unique perspective. You're coming from behind, he's leaping over, you can just feel the movement of him leaping into the Colosseum. You got this really unique perspective on the spear, especially. I just love it. I love the outfit. That's exactly what the outfit should be.
Yeah.
I love, we've got the perspective, too, of the audience in the background. And it's just, it's a really great, maybe it's, corny that we love this moment so much because everybody loves this moment. But you know what? If everybody loves this moment, then there's a reason for that. And it's a beautiful piece of art. So, Stephen Lee, you captured this moment perfectly. Not every piece of art needs to show you the character's face. This is a great piece. There we go.
So, good job, artists. We like to highlight them. They don't get enough credit.
If we do a part 4, we'll do another character.
We will, because we're gonna end part 3 here in a little bit. I'm almost done with part 3, and we've gone on long enough.
Yeah.
So the next section I want to get into, even though I've kind of jumped around, wasn't as planned. Like, we got way into stuff that I wasn't planning on getting
Sorry.
into.
You got my brain juices flowing.
So I have a little bit of an alternate theory that if Navani, if Shallan doesn't get trapped in the knife or die or whatever, then Navani will figure out how to use the knife to perhaps kill Dalinar. I don't like that.
Well, I mean, we already know how to kill Dalinar. It's with the anti-stormlight.
Yeah, but if he becomes fused,
then anti-storm and void light. I imagine if you can make war light, then you can make anti-war light.
Yeah, so I'm not a fan of it. It didn't quite fit with the thing, and then like to make him fused and then kill him kind of feels like a broken promise. I'm like, well, I didn't get to see him do nothing.
Yeah, come on, Sith.
So I wrote it down just to kind of point it out there, but it wasn't my favorite. I think, though, you have a moment where Adolin, Kaladin, Renarin, everyone kind of goes back to Irithiru and prepares for the coming of Dalinar. I just think...
It's going to be, and we're back here again.
I think it's too good of a moment to pass up. I think having Renarin perhaps rally the listeners is like, we have restored your god of Ba'ad Mishram. Now come help us because we're going to die. I think this is just too good of a moment. Whether the listeners come or not, I don't know. And I think we do get to see a little bit of the battle. I think I think we get to see Dalinar let loose, and it's just one-sided.
Mm-hmm. We've seen some of his, Blackthorn side from his flashbacks, and it's brutal
but
stuff.
I think this is going to be Blackthorn to the nth degree because he's now infused, pun intended. But I think why I mention the listeners is because we freed Ba'ad Mishram. I think there needs to be a section where she goes back and kind of takes over at least some of the listeners from...
Tries to regain her presidency.
Yeah, tries to regain her presidency. But yes. I think Venli is on that side, basically trying to do the same, right? Being like, okay, Ja'Anat is not the way we want to go. We want to go this way. Mm-hmm. And then Ba'ad Mishram comes in, she's like, oh, thank goodness I don't have to be in charge anymore.
Yeah.
But I think with that, Ba'ad Mishram comes back with whatever mysterious power that we've kind of touched on has, and kind of, gets some pumped up listeners and like, all right, let's go fight some Dalinar.
Just got buff.
So I think, power is drawn from her, and she kind of gets restored. And I think the key to that is that what we will see, and I think this was purposeful foreshadowing, is the tower mentioned, even I was affected by Ba'ad Mishram's sealing away. Mm-hmm. So I think we'll be like, are the listeners going to come and save us? I don't know. And then the tower will be like, oh, something happened. Mm-hmm. And then the listeners come in. And so then the battle turns. And
the listeners already have something whack going on with them, though, because they came riding in on Chaz and Fiends.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, a lot has changed for us as well, Venli, since we last saw each other. And just like, oh my gosh.
So, part 3, I think, is going to be, we'll say, the end of the conflicts. The climax, as I put it. This is it. This is the peak. From here, we're just coming down. We're wrapping stuff up and laying stuff up into part 4. But I think we wrap up part 3 with the defeat of Dalinar. And I don't think he dies. I just think he's like, all right, I guess we're retreating. Because I think Odium, at this point, is going to have full control over his faculties. To be like, oh, hold on. I need you.
Yeah.
I think he abandons the Fused. And so the Fused get dealt with. Because that's problem A, right? Fused and then Odium. Mm-hmm. The Fused get dealt with. Locked away, whatever. I don't know. And then Dalinar gets pulled away and sent into the Cosmere. And I think we end part 3 with, we basically had this staring down of the sons versus the father. Renarin and Adolin looking at Dalinar. But then I think Odium interferes once Ba'ad Mishram and her forces come in. It's like, all right, screw the Fuse, Dalinar, you're coming with me. And whether Adolin swears ideals or not, his third ideal... I think this is also too good to pass up. So maybe he will swear ideals. But his third ideal will be, I will seek those who are lost.
I just like that one.
And so I think that will sum up his mission. I will go into the Cosmere and get my father. I will try to figure out how to fix Shallan along with Azure.
Or maybe even all the Deadeyes.
And so I think there will be a passing off, right? He will go to Yas and be like, I can't be king. You got to figure this out. He'll go to Renar and be like, you can be king if you want, but you got to figure this out. And so I think this is how we start to clear the board, right? Adolin and Shallan leave. Kaladin, which we didn't quite get into because I think that partly takes part in part 4, is dealing with Moash. Mm-hmm. Dalinar is now into the Cosmere. So we've started to clear off the board, but we're left with kind of this mess that I think part 4 kind of wraps up and places the pieces exactly where Brandon wants them to be for the next 5 books. And I guess we'll get into that next time.
Okay.
But that's mostly where we're at. I've made a mess of Brandon's story, which I think he is also going to do, just perhaps not in this way.
He'll make a mess of it in a way that we all like.
He'll make a mess of it in a way that we all like. But I think that's where we're going to be at. I think Adolin is going to be a heavy part of the books. I think Dalinar is going to be a Fused. I think Renarin is perhaps going to be torn because I think he agrees with Ja'Anat.
But loves R'lain.
Loves R'lain. I think Shallan is either gonna die or gonna be incapacitated in a way that she needs to be restored. Mm-hmm. I think Azure...
I'm excited for all of the Fabrial and light work that's going to happen.
I think that does happen, but I didn't bother to theorize because that's going to be all Navani stuff.
Yeah, but I'm still excited for that stuff.
I think that happens. I think Navani, I mentioned this last time, makes more progress than Dalinar did in his several years. I think she just pumps it out in days.
But that's what I love is that the Spren that they bond with actually match a lot of their own personalities. Mm-hmm. So Navani is very sciencey, and the sibling is very sciencey actually. But you got the Stormfather who's like, let's all hold to our word, and Dalinar's like, agreed.
And so I think that's kind of where we're left. At the end of part 3, everything's a mess. We're now like, well, now what's Brandon gonna do?
Yeah. This is not gonna end
well. And so next time we'll touch on part 4, which I'm deeming as the wrap up. And we will kind of wrap everything up and lay out the pieces where I think they'll be laid before the next section, and maybe kind of recap a little bit where everybody has gone through, because the arcs of each of the character were important for me. And then we'll do that next time.
Probably next Saturday again.
Yeah, if you guys join us, don't forget to like and subscribe, comment down below, and do the thing.
Do the things.